TPN at technophilespodcast.com. I'm David Geisler, and this is the Technophiles Podcast. The car can say, okay, cool. If we go this other route that's like 4 minutes longer, there's better service.
Coverage. Yeah.
It's the season premiere of the Technophiles Podcast, and the cast gets together to talk about Volvo's new Netflix plan, Oculus Rift sale price, and a new material that could make cell phone screens much cheaper. It's time to Netflix and drive, because this is the Technophiles 281st episode. All right, everybody, welcome to tonight's show. I am here with Krista-Lee Malone and Vee Laabs. Gals, how you doing?
Great.
We are back. This is our...
Decide what word to say.
We're good raid.
Good.
Rated.
We're good. We're great and good.
Love it. I love it. So we're back. This is season 8. We've had our holiday break, and times have been exciting. Did you guys have a good holidays?
Yeah.
Yeah.
God, yeah.
Got some new flannels. Got a basket for my bike.
Is this one of your new flannels that you're wearing right here?
This is a Duluth trading company
Wait a second.
women's flannel.
Wait a second. I think we are all wearing Christmas gifts right now.
Are we?
Yes, we are.
Oh my gosh.
We are.
Thanks, Mom.
Thanks, moms.
Thanks, Jared.
It's true. I think it's true. Krista-Lee, how you doing?
I'm doing great.
It's weird saying that because we've had so many meetings over the break.
Yes,
getting
actually.
we've been working on getting the live shows lined up
geez.
because we got 3 more coming up at UWM. And Krista-Lee is hosting a new show this season, which we might as well talk about right now.
Yeah, so I'll be hosting Sci-Fi Science. We're going to talk about the real science behind science fiction novels.
Mm-hmm. And it'll be, I think we're going to have it come out once a month for starters. Take it nice and
Yes.
easy because you do have to read a book for every single episode.
Ooh.
Yes.
Give people time. And I think you're even planning, it's going to be you and Patrick Tomlinson,
Correct.
which you gave a little shout out to in one of your newscast videos, actually.
I did. Yes, I did.
What newscast video was that? What was it about?
That was the one... Oh my God.
I know, I
What
almost
was
don't remember what the
actual
topic.
topic?
Space station, I think, something like that.
Yeah, probably.
There was some
Had to
version
have
of a
been.
space station, life cycle, something.
Right, because we were talking, because his book talks about a generation ship.
I think it's called The Ark, the
Yes,
book, right?
right.
So you're going to be the host. He's going to be kind of co-host, cast member kind of
Yep.
thing. The two of you will be talking about science fiction stories and the intention. I think the first one we're going to have just you and him do it and kind of just warm up with the first episode. But after that, I think we're going to try to have guests just about every episode.
Right, and that's going to change, like who we ask is going to change depending on the book, right? The idea is actually slightly different from the rest of TPN shows where it's for fans, by fans. We're actually trying to build this as, here's experts, but for fans. So when I ask that guest, it's going to be very specific to, okay, I've read this book. This is the science they're talking about.
Right.
Who is the expert I need to go ask?
It's true. I am just adjusting adjusting the computer here real quick. Yeah, I really love it because I think, well, you each kind of have different roles. You have a role, Patrick will have a role, and then hopefully the guest will bring the expertise role, right?
Well, actually, in some ways, all 3 of us are bringing a different expertise because you have Patrick, who's a professional sci-fi writer. So he has that experience, that professional experience of what it actually takes to write a science fiction book.
I can only assume he'll be looking at it, obviously, from the eyes of an author.
That's what I am asking him to do. Hopefully, that's what he does. Then you have me, who I actually graduated while we were on break. So
right.
I have a PhD in anthropology, my focus being on technology, game studies, social media, and obviously science fiction, technology plays into that. But I specifically have the expertise in how cultures and people deal with these things and accept these things.
Yep.
So for the guest, what we're really hoping for is to always have a hard scientist. So like I have the people view, Patrick has the writer view, and then we want the chemist, physicist, whatever.
Like, kind of, for the fun of it, really challenge the science that's in the book.
Yeah.
We're not trying to be haters on the science. It's obviously fun to do that, right?
Right,
What part of it's kind of realistic? What part of it's not?
Right, and it's none of it's going to be hating at all.
Right.
So
It's going to be cool.
yeah.
I'm very excited. It's been low key. We haven't done a lot of promotion for it yet, obviously.
Yeah.
You know, we've had a couple videos go out there. We've got Jamin hosting the Tabletop Test Shop, which is another show that's coming out for TPN this season. I think our first production date for that is 2 or 3 weeks from now. We originally, when I was putting the schedule together for this season with TPN, we have the Technophiles Podcast, Technophiles Newscast, Branching Dialogue, Tabletop Test Shop, and Sci-Fi Science. And originally, I had them all come out this week. I was like, boom!
Yeah.
And the calendar was nuts. And very quickly I was like, oh, okay, we better maybe stagger the releases. You know, once we get up and running a month from now, they'll all be happening all the time.
Yeah.
But like maybe we kind of tier this thing a little bit.
Right.
Especially right after the holidays.
Right after the holidays,
Still got that.
I mean, I was excited to get into it, and all these shows are looking great. Sci-Fi Science is going to be really easy to make. I think you and guys are going to sit right over here. We're going to have probably a different camera angle and whatever. It's going to be awesome. Tabletop Test Shop, we've already done a dry run. We shot a 0 episode, and we shot it over here in the kind of living room space area over here. It worked out great. It's going to be really good. Jamin is hosting that. Jamin was almost going to be a guest with us tonight just to kind of help promote Tabletop Test Shop, but he has pneumonia.
Yeah.
He emailed me yesterday.
Of all the things.
So it's the three of us. But this is fun too.
Yeah, he actually called me because I was supposed to meet up with him this afternoon before I came here to record.
Okay.
So I actually knew before you told me because he had to call up and be like, you don't want to.
He felt pretty bad. He was excited. V, how have you been? Can we talk about you riding in a freaking Tesla S?
Okay, so
let me say this. The other day I just woke up and was going through my tweets, and all of a sudden I saw that you rode in a Tesla S. I won't ruin it. I'll let you talk about it.
So I had stayed up super late with my boyfriend watching like pro wrestling, Japanese pro wrestling. So I stayed the night, and it was cold and it was gross out. So I wasn't gonna walk to work. I wanted to take a Lyft because that's what I do when I'm lazy.
Nothing wrong with the Lyft. We're fans of Lyft here.
Yeah. So I pull it up and I request one, and it pops up who my driver is and what the car is. And I'm like rubbing my eyes. I'm like, this can't be right. I'm still waking up here. It's a Tesla Model S. A Tesla Model S was on the way to pick me up. And I'm like, Greg.
And this wasn't like Uber Black or anything.
No,
it was just normal Lyft.
Yeah.
Normal Lyft. And I'm like, Greg, the Model S is going to pick me up. He's like, no way.
Did he have to go out and see it, right?
Yeah. So it pulls up. And like, I open the door and he's like looking out too. He's like watching me go to the car. And he's like,
he's like taping with his camera.
My girlfriend getting into a Model S. So I go around, I get to the passenger side, and there's no handle. And I'm like, what do I do? And like I reach out to it and it pops out.
Yeah.
And it meets me and I'm like,
you didn't have to touch it even, huh?
No.
Oh wow, I didn't know that. That's cool.
It was crazy. And so I got in, and like there was just leg space for miles.
Yeah, right.
It's ridiculous because there's like no transmission or anything in there, and there's like a big touch screen for your map and all your engine stats.
It's like the size of like this monitor here in front of me.
Ridiculous.
It's huge.
It's like 3 iPads stacked together.
Yeah. Yeah, maybe actually.
It's pretty darn big, and it was smooth and it was quiet. The guy driving it was like. He told me that it was the last Model S to be made before they added all the sensors for the auto driving.
Sure.
I was like, oh no, that sucks. I can't believe it.
Great?
This is still really
You'd
cool.
be like, I don't care. I'll pay more on my Lyft.
Yeah.
Take me across the Hone Bridge.
Yeah.
Let's autopilot across on the interstate.
No, he didn't have the sensors in his car.
He was a cool guy, huh?
Yeah, but he dropped me off. Shouts out to Logan.
Logan. I was like, let's see who this guy is. Does he have a Twitter account or anything?
I don't know.
Like,
I didn't exchange any info with him.
Logan with a Model S.
Yeah. But he dropped me off and he drove away, and it sounded like a Jetsons car.
Because they kind of just go, woo. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's like a golf cart noise, but a little different.
And that's when I checked my phone after I got off. Like Greg had texted me. He's like, that's like a future car. It's like a hover car's noise making thing.
Yeah, it's crazy.
It's so
And another thing that's interesting about the Model S's is that you don't really brake. You just let off the acceleration, and it slows down really quickly.
Yeah,
There's not a lot of coasting with Model S or any of the Teslas, really.
Yeah.
Which it takes a little getting used to. Actually, that's also a little bit like a golf cart now that I think about it. How when you there's not a lot of inertia once you pull off the acceleration.
Yeah.
Anyway, we got to talk about what we're talking about tonight.
Yeah.
But this is great. This is fun to catch up with you girls. It's weird saying that. But hey girls.
Let's talk about science.
So tonight, we obviously CES is going on. Just finished up. Well, I think by the time people are hearing this, about a week ago.
Yeah.
And I think I found a couple stories that actually about self-driving cars that I'd like to talk about here. And like, hey, we're doing a new format too. We're doing 3-part. We're going to do 1 episode a week, but 3 parts. Where we used to do like 2 episodes with 2 parts every week. We've changed it up a little bit. I think this is going to be great. Yeah. So tonight it works out really great. It's going to be, I think, me, Krista-Lee, Vee, or me, Vee, Krista-Lee. I think we're going to go right down the way here.
There we go.
So it's a little weird for us to get used to. We're not going to have that break in the middle. We're going to kind of have 3 chapters. Actually, it's going to feel more like our live shows, I think, now that I think about it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Where it's like 1, 2, 3. But I'm for it. We're experimenting with a new format here, and I think it'll be good. Okay, so I think in part 1 here, I'm going to be talking about some things that Volvo is planning with self-driving cars. If I had to like title my topic that I'm going to be talking about here in a few seconds, I would title it, "We have self-driving cars, now what do we do inside them?" Like, it's, you know what I mean? We were already at that point. Which I think is very exciting. I'll comment on that a little bit more in a moment. Then we're going to take a break and come back in part 2. And part 2, I think, Vee, it is a story that you found, which is awesome. But I think like you just found it recently, like earlier this evening or something. So I don't even know what it's about. What is it?
It's the Oculus Rift is now up for like open sale, not just dev kits anymore.
Actually for sale.
It's got a pretty hefty price tag, and
don't ruin it. Save it for part 2.
I won't.
Love it.
We'll
I wanted to ask right now.
Yeah.
I wanted to ask. Whew. All right, so we'll be talking about Oculus Rift in part 2, and then we're going to come back after that for one more round. And part 3, we're going to be talking about Krista-Lee.
Basically, some new materials to put into cell phones to hopefully make them cheaper.
Make them cheaper?
Yes.
Well,
in
that's great.
theory, this should be able to make them cheaper.
Yeah, love it.
that.
We'll talk about that too. All right, so let's dive in here. I'm going to talk kind of quickly here about... Well, there's a couple stories. There's a lot of things going on at CES right now, and one of the trends that I've noticed as I've been reading all the articles over this past week or so is that there's a lot of robotic stuff. We always know that. There's a lot of virtual reality right now, but let me preface this by saying this: we're in our 8th season of this show right now, somewhere around season 3 or 4, which is like 5 years ago or something like that. We had an article on here where it was like, get this. Self-driving cars.
Yeah. You won't believe it.
We like did a whole episode on Google's building algorithms to make it, and the car drove around a parking lot once. And we were like, whoa, it's going to be amazing. And we were like, in 20 years, these cars are going to be on the roads, guys. Well, here we are, not 4 or 5 years later, and to some degree, these cars are already on the roads.
Yeah. Right.
But certainly... I think in a year or 2, just about every single car that comes out of a factory is probably going to have self-driving capabilities.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? There's probably going to be
sort.
some I think we're looking at, and I also remember 4 or 5 years ago, roughly, Google saying something like, yeah, we think we can do this in about 8 years. So we were like, whoa, that's amazing. Okay, it drives around a parking lot now. In 8 years, maybe it'll be able to drive down the street, and then 20 years later, we'll all have self-driving cars. It's kind of what we were joking. Not joking. We really thought that.
Yeah.
This is happening so much faster. It's very exciting. Obviously, the Tesla Model S has like the autopilot feature, which has been pretty successful. It's not self-driving, but it's an autopilot, and it's working pretty well. Very well, unless people abuse it. Just like you can abuse cruise control, you could say. Because if you're going to do autopilot, it's designed for the highway, if I may real quick, the Tesla autopilot. And if you're doing it like on a neighborhood street,
No.
it's probably not going to...
Yeah.
It's irresponsible to do that.
Yes.
And oftentimes the car will let you know that it's not in a good way for that setting. But then we do have, there's already the Mercedes out there that's been out there for like a year. It's pseudo concept car, but like that's already driving around down the streets, versions of that. We know that Google's big plan, it seems, when you kind of put all the pieces together and read in between the lines, it looks like what they're really getting excited about is kind of having hive mind self-driving cars to essentially become taxis.
Yeah.
And I think, didn't Uber like put a bunch of money, I could be wrong about this, but Uber invested a bunch of money perhaps specifically in the Google car, or maybe just in their own version of self-driving cars?
Yeah.
Because Uber's real. We're talking about Lyft right now. They're both similar, slightly different company models, but similar products, obviously.
Right.
Yeah.
I really think Uber just wants to get rid of the drivers altogether in the next 5 years or whatever.
Yeah.
Okay, so
Crazy about efficiency.
4 years ago, we thought it was future Jetsons talk. Now here we are, where it's quicker than I'm pro self-driving cars, and this is happening a little quicker than I was thinking. You know what I mean? And it's becoming so obvious because now at CES, the big stories aren't that these cars are driving themselves.
Right.
As an industry, we're past that idea.
Right.
That's
the
already
alone.
normal, quote unquote,
Sure.
in the industry. That's inevitable, you could say. So now all the big things are like what people do in these cars. There was stories about, of course, chairs that spin around and things like that. There's a company, Harman, that's like implementing Microsoft Office 365 into the car so you can be working on spreadsheets and things like that while you're sitting in the car. Because right now we think about self-driving cars, or even if you see like a Tesla autopilot thing, basically the person lets go of the steering wheel and they just sit there.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
We know that once the self-driving cars are reliable enough, legally and emotionally reliable enough, people don't even need to face forward anymore. Essentially, you're on a train at that point.
Yeah.
You can have your laptop out. You can be sitting and talking with people. You could get real weird and like, well, it depends. You might still have to wear seatbelts, but you can imagine weird things maybe 10 or 20 years from now where cars are just like these boxes. Like imagine a van without any of the seats, right?
Yeah,
like what do you do with that?
Yeah.
You could have storage, like U-Haul could just have box trucks that they drive themselves to your spot, right? And okay, so you see where I'm going with this. Well, one of the things, just to bring this all in and talk about something specific that I was impressed with, Volvo's one of their big things that they had at CES is, now this is going to sound silly, but there's a lot of things in the background that I think will lead to bigger things. Volvo, it's always a little hard for me to say their name. Even when I was talking about their kangaroo detection and stuff, I always want to throw an L at the end. I'm not sure why. Volvo is adding Netflix into their cars, or a model of a car. Okay, fine. Like, I've like hacked a minivan and had Netflix stream into my phone and go out an audio video cord and go into an audio video system of a minivan, so you can watch Netflix while you're on a road trip with the family or something, or like the nieces need to see something. That's all just silliness, and you're using up a lot of data when you do that and all of that.
Oh, yeah.
But, so like, why is Netflix in a car important? Because Netflix is in everything. Like, that's the joke, is you have 6 different ways to watch Netflix in your house. And that's okay. That's Netflix's business plan. So, Vee, why do you think they're getting excited about Netflix in their car? And then I'll get a little bit more. I just want to see what you think.
Well, I mean, you've now taken away the concentration, the future taking away of concentration of driving. You've freed up like tons of free time to do whatever you want while you're going from point A to point B. And people like to fill that time with watching videos. So they're just kind of getting ahead of the curve right now, where it's like, all right, we're going to normalize this.
Well, I think about this. When I drive, I listen to podcasts a lot.
Yeah.
Because of my job, I'm often driving at least a half an hour, sometimes an hour, and occasionally an hour and a half. And it's a great way to take in podcasts because I have to keep my eyes on the road.
Right.
Yes.
Once I'm not driving, I think like, well, it's silly to watch a video, but no, dude, I'm not looking at anything else.
Yeah.
And here's what Volvo has done. For starters, they did something that surprised me a little bit. The dashboard by the passenger seat spins around in this concept that they're putting together, and it has a pretty good size TV screen that reveals itself to the car. So big that the driver can easily watch this screen. So big that if it were in a normal car, you'd probably get pulled over by police because it'd be illegal.
Holy smokes.
Or are you seeing the image right now?
I'm seeing it right now.
I'll bring it up.
It's ridiculous.
Yeah, I was
like the
looking at that
glove
before.
box just rotates up, and then there's like a 20-inch screen underneath.
No, that's a GIF. That's a GIF put together by Verge.com that I have us looking at right now. But
So I don't know
it gives you a concept.
if this is important, but I'm guessing there is no longer a glove box.
There may not be a glove box, but I tell you what I thought about was like, where does the airbag go? And I'm sure that they've figured that out. It's coming from another direction.
I like that's
Yeah.
what you thought, because my
That's-
thought, having seasonal allergies, is where do I put my Kleenex if there's no glove box?
Where do I put all my fast food napkins?
Okay.
Yeah, like,
so-
this is important.
That's what my parents do.
Well,
Yeah.
Dave, I'm in a car. It's driving itself. What am I going to do? I'm going to eat.
Yeah. Well, you watch your Netflix.
You could
Yeah.
conceivably now, actually. That is a good point. You could be like, oh, I got to get to work. I have a half an hour. I'll eat on the way now. You can do that.
Yeah.
Oh, I
have
totally would
breakfast in
do
the car.
that.
Have your
Right, I
sandwich.
wouldn't. Why would you waste?
Yeah.
Why would I waste time with
Right.
breakfast at home
Right.
when I can sleep
Yeah.
an extra
So-
30 minutes, get in the car, and eat?
I've already emphasized that it's kind of cool that we're almost already past this self-driving car thing. Now we're thinking about what are people doing inside them. Mm-hmm. And that makes a lot of sense. People are going to want to keep working. They're going to want to keep entertaining themselves. They want to keep eating or doing whatever. Now that is time that you can spend on something.
Right.
Probably even more so than if you're sitting on a train, because you have privacy. You have a little bit more space.
Yeah.
So here's my final thoughts about what's kind of cool about this. So this big screen is a little bit alarming at first until you really think about the self-driving car thing, as I just pointed out.
Right.
But obviously Netflix specifically is a streaming service. So we're streaming data into the car. There's a lot of cars that already have cellular streams coming in that have constant Wi-Fi and all that kind of stuff. That's great. But of course there's going to be dead spots on the road.
Right.
When you're driving. For anybody who's dead spots in cell phones. We live in a medium-sized city, and certainly in a bigger city, this is not going to be a problem. But there's going to be times where you're going to have dead zones with your service, right?
Yeah.
What the car does is, so the first answer is usually if you need to, if you're going to have inconsistent service, like sometimes this comes up in camping technology or nature technology. Sometimes what you'll do is you want to pre-cache your data. So sometimes there's like map GPS apps that you might use when you're hiking, and if it knows it's probably going to lose service, it might pre-cache out couple miles past where it thinks you're even going. You know, like that's a fair thing.
Google Maps does that, where you can save the map.
Yes, absolutely.
And even if you're disconnected from wireless, it'll save your route and stuff like that.
Right. A lot of maps still keep. I use a GPS one sometimes that lets you pick, like, if you want 250, 500, 1 gig, or even 2 gigs of cache, just of recent memory, stuff like that. It works great. And actually, frankly, that even if you want to get nitpicky about it, saves on cellular charges, because that first time you hit, like if say you're driving back to work, well, you're not streaming that data back in every time. It just sits there on the hard drive. Okay. So usually it's pre-caching. Okay, fine. Maybe they could just be awesome and pre-cache a whole stinking Netflix video or whatever, right? Okay, fair enough, but it goes one step further. Volvo points out in this article that I found on The Verge, Volvo points out that there's another thing that's new to self-driving cars. The new thing is you know how long the drive is now. You know, the same way that we know with GPS, we can estimate, we have, you'll be there in 30 minutes.
Right. Yeah.
But the car knows exactly how long, all things considered. Maybe there's a little bit of traffic data, this or that.
Yeah.
But in general, it knows exactly how long it needs to take.
So it'll cache that much.
It'll cache that much, and also they're going to create Hive data of where there are dead zones. So it knows I'm coming up on one. I need to ramp it up.
Have this much more
and it knows
ready to
I'm
go.
going to be in that dead zone for 10 minutes. I'm going to cache up over 10 minutes of video so you can watch through it. And then I know because 500 other Volvos went through this spot that there's going to be service over there again.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And so it's actually can intelligently cache, which is cool. Now, okay, we apply this to Netflix. That's great. But I'm starting to think about, like, what if I'm on Google Docs? Like, I want to be on, what if I want to work on a TPN spreadsheet while I'm driving, hypothetically in this world? And Google Docs is you can do stuff offline, but if you're not, if you're online, it can get a little particular.
Yes.
Like you can make an update, and if it's not connected, it's like trying to save. Most of the time it works great, but every once in a while that'll happen.
Yeah.
Okay, so I start thinking about stuff like that is great. I start thinking about all this streaming data, but there's one more detail, and then we'll cut and go to part 2. There's one other thing that you can do when you're planning your route. So now imagine a scenario where these cars are aware of where there are dead zones, aware of their hot spots, we'll say. You can say, it sounds silly at first, but it's awesome. You can say, I want to watch the first episode of Making a Murderer or whatever. I'm going to Grandma's house. I want to watch the first episode of Making a Murderer.
Really set the mood right
That's a little weird. That's a little weird, but just go with me. I'm driving home from work. And I want to watch, I don't know, I'm trying to pick something that's a little lighter, but you get the idea.
Yeah.
Blah, blah, blah episode. And it knows that episode is 35 minutes long, or, with Netflix things can be different. It can be an hour and 4. They can be whatever. Let's say it's a 30-minute episode. Let's just pick something really simple and say it's like New Girl or something like that, okay?
Okay.
You say, I want to watch that episode of New Girl. And, in fact, I think they used New Girl in the Volvo release video, so this is fair. The car can say, okay, cool. If you want to watch, this is the quickest route, but there's 2 or 3 dead zones. If we go this other route that's like 4 minutes longer, there's better service.
Coverage. Yeah.
Would you prefer that? And the person can say, I'm in no rush. I'd like to make sure I can watch this episode. Sure. So you can, in a way, you can course. You can now not just map your course from traffic data and distance. You can map it by like cellular activity.
Okay, so Yes, I think when you're using an
I
example,
want a high data route. I don't mind if it's
Right.
low data. I gotta get there.
I want a high data route, and I can watch all of the episode.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
It can plan that. It's like, well, it's about 35 minutes. This is a 35-minute route, and it's better service.
I feel like with that particular example, that does kind of make it silly, but let's think about it. You're
Right.
working on a PowerPoint presentation. You think you need about 30 minutes. You tell, right, using the same technology,
agree.
you tell it, like, take a slightly shorter route because this needs to be done before I get to work, right? You know how sometimes you have those jobs where it's like, if you're 4 minutes late to the office, that's going to get you in less trouble than if you don't have X thing
What you
done.
need,
Right,
and you're on
exactly.
time.
Yeah.
Even if it only took 2 more minutes once you got there.
Right,
Perhaps,
right.
yeah.
So, like, for
I mean, this is
Wow.
that type of thing, that
Wow.
technology.
that's some scandalous strategy there, Krista-Lee,
Yeah,
but
hey, sometimes you got to
Hey,
do
that's
what
real.
you got to do.
I see what you're
real.
saying.
You know?
But we all three here, I can tell, understand the implications of
Yes.
this.
Right.
And I think that's kind of cool.
This is so cool.
It blew my mind, quote unquote, a little bit, blew my mind when I thought, like, oh my gosh, we can start mapping based on date, and
Yeah.
it only made me realize more and more, like, that's only going to happen more and more and more. Like, of course,
Yeah.
we're going to be living in a consistently more cloud-based environment anyway. That it's cool. I mean, it's cool.
Gonna be
I don't know.
This is like a whole, like, all right, we spent so long thinking about how to make driving cars go. We haven't quite gotten there yet. We've made some really big steps, but now everybody's like, what are we gonna do on these trips? Let's think about that. And then like the two like work together to like change the way we get around and like what routes and methods we're using and like how we use all the data we can collect from these types of things. It's just like a whole other, it's like a parallel road of just like entertainment and extracurricular stuff and also getting from point A to point B.
And I feel like Netflix is a good entry point. Everybody can wrap their head around
yeah,
Netflix.
like that's a simple concept.
But it means larger things and better things and greater things. And I think
Yeah.
that's really cool. So we've had a meaty part here. We got to move on to part 2 because we kind of talked in the intro there. It was nice catching up, though. I liked
Yeah.
it. It was great.
It's been a while.
So we'll go to break and come back and be talking about the Oculus Rift actually for sale. Isn't that right,
Yes.
Vee?
Yes.
Fantastic. I look forward to it. In the meantime, Krista-Lee, people can find you on Twitter, as you cough.
Yeah, of
on
course.
Twitter at
Gamer Anthro.
Anthro. And Vee, if people want to talk to you about their Netflix Volvo binges.
Bear_Annika on Twitter.
Wonderful, wonderful. We love it when people tweet the show at Technophiles Pod if they want to talk about their making a murder viewings
On the way to grandma's.
on the way to grandma's
Does your
house.
grandma like making how to make her murder?
I think there's a lot of grandmas out there that probably like that show.
I
There's a lot of
think so.
people that like that
Yeah.
show right now.
Well,
And I don't want to get
like
into
is
it.
not quite the word.
We're curious about,
Yes.
watched, consumed,
Yes.
right? You know what I mean? And let's see, we love when we do that. People can find us on iTunes. They can find our whole episode on iTunes. And my pants are blowing up right now. yeah, just trying to finish this
Everybody's
part.
so excited for new Technophiles.
Did you say
season.
Volvo? Volvo Netflix?
Oh.
season 8 starting?
Season 8?
Yeah, I'll start right now. All right, anyway, guys, we'll get out of here. If people want to tweet me, they can find me on Twitter at RaptorPaint. I'll catch you in part 2. Marvelous.